Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Start the Week with Spencer. This is our weekly webinar where we discuss important topics about the Doman Method and children with special needs and early childhood education. And in this specific session, I'm going to be talking about what is it about Doman Method materials that make them so effective in teaching children with special needs and young children in general. So stay tuned for that. But also, I take questions during this session. And so wherever you are joining from, whether you're joining from, Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, as I'm going through this session, feel free to type your questions into the comments box. No matter what platform you are on, I will see your questions and I will answer them in order. All right, well, let me jump right into the topic that I wanted to cover today. And that is what makes Doman Method teaching materials so effective for teaching children with special needs and young children in general. So I want to just start by holding up some materials the kinds of materials we would use for teaching children. And there are some really important criteria that any material that we show to a young child, we are working to meet. So the first thing is, you can see that here we've got some images that we use for teaching. Here you can see a picture of an elephant. And the first important thing is that we are always going to use precise images when teaching a child. We're not going to use like silly cartoon images or unrealistic depictions of what we're trying to teach the kid, because we want the child to know exactly what it is we are trying to teach them. So you can see, for example, here's the picture of the elephant. The second thing that we're going to do when we teach is we are going to put just one thing on a picture, right? So you can see here we've got an image of a lion, but there's nothing in the background, which is going to distract the child from what it is we're trying to teach them, right? So it is a clear, not just a clear image, but it's just one thing. And that makes it clear to the child what we're trying to teach them. Imagine if the lion was in a jungle and there were trees behind the lion and other animals, the child might be distracted, right? Or they may not be able to understand exactly what it is we're trying to teach them. So this makes it incredibly clear. Here you can see the picture with the tiger. The next thing that we do when we are teaching is we always give the child the most specific name possible, the exact name of what we're trying to teach them, right? So we're not going to just say, this is a big cat. We're going to say, this is a tiger, right? And here's a giraffe. And this is a zebra. We're going to tell them exactly what it is. We're not just going to say animal. And so that way the child learns the specific name for that animal. And then finally, we're always going to try to teach the child something new, right? So for example, this would be a great set of cards for a child who hasn't been taught African animals yet, right? Because this is all new things for the child. However, if the child already knows all these animals, there's not much use in spending time teaching them to the child. We could move on to teaching more sophisticated things to the child that they haven't learned yet. So those are the four criteria we're trying to reach, right? We're trying to meet. First, precise images. Second, just one thing on the picture, so there are no distractions. Third, we give the child the specific name. Fourth, we are giving them something new that they've never learned before. And that is what makes these materials so effective for teaching, because first of all, it's something new, so the child is learning new information, right? That's very important. Second, there's no distractions for the child. There's no possibility for confusion for the child because it's just one thing that's there. We're using accurate images. And I do want to say, using accurate images are important, of course, for the child to know exactly what it is we're talking about. But it's also respectful of the child's intelligence, right? Very often you'll find these kind of flashcards on the market that use cartoony images, and they're silly. And we are learning, there's nothing more important, right? You could argue, in a person's life than their ability to learn about the world around them. So we use precise, realistic images when teaching a kid. And so when you use materials that are formulated in this way, it makes it so easy for children to learn. And kids learn rapidly, and they actually tend to have great memories, right? And they're able to retain the information when we use materials like this. So let me show you what a set of, what a presentation might look like, right? So the first thing I would do is I'd set the child up for what it is we're going to be learning in this session. So for example, I would say, okay, in this session, we're going to be learning about different vehicles. Okay. And then you move ahead with the teaching and you show the cards quickly, only about 1 second a card. So you'd say, okay, here's a van. This is a motorcycle. Look at the taxi. This is a truck. And back to a bicycle, right? So there are only 5 cards in a session, and that allows the session to go very quickly, right? If you were timing that, it probably took about 5 seconds for me to show the cards. So the sessions are very short, so the children learn quickly. Okay, I better focus because these sessions are going to be quick. So this gives me the opportunity to learn. And so the child pays attention. The session is over quickly. Now, because the teaching session is only 5 seconds, we are able to do a good number of sessions throughout the day, right? The child is enjoying them, they're interested, but we can now teach this with repetition. So for example, this set of vehicles we would show to the child 3 times in a day to help them learn it. And the set of animals we would also show 3 times in a day. 3 times is almost a perfect frequency in a day because it's enough times that it will help the child retain the information. But it's not too many times that the child will get annoyed or bored at the amount of repetition that they're doing. So it's not just about the Doman Method materials themselves that make them so effective for teaching. It's about how they're used, right? You can go out on the market and buy different kinds of flashcards, but rarely with the same quality that these have, but also there's usually no guidance as to how to use them. Like, what is the right repetition to teach a child? And so when you combine the quality of materials with the quality of teaching, which is the length of the sessions, the frequency, the joyousness that's brought into the session, then you really have a child who's engaged each and every session. And when their engagement is high, their memory of the materials, the retention becomes very, very good. So if you're interested in learning more about Doman Method materials like these, there are materials available at domanlearning.com, which is kind of our sister company, which provides courses and materials in early learning. And of course, if you want to learn more specifically about how to teach children with special needs, we cover the topic of the first foundational cognitive development steps in our online courses. So our courses like the Doman Method course from special needs to wellness, which is our online course for parents of children with special needs, and also the Answering Autism course, which is specifically the Doman Method course for children with autism. We cover how to teach children with special needs in the best possible way. All right, we have some questions that are coming in now. So I see a question here from Tanya who says, at what age should I start with my child? Well, Tanya, I don't know how old your child is, but I could probably say with confidence now is the right time to start, because these materials, if you're asking when is a child ready to start learning from materials like this, well, all a child needs to do, right, is to be able to see the images clearly, be able to see detail like you see on these pictures, and also they need to have the hearing capability to hear the names as you read them or say them aloud. So on average, children by 7 months of age are ready for this. Now, there are exceptions, right? There are sometimes children who, we work with the entire spectrum of children with special needs. Some children, for example, have visual impairment because of an injury to the brain, or hearing issues that may make it not the right time to start this. And with those children, we have other treatments we start first. But generally, by the time an average child is 7 months of age, they're ready for this. Okay. Okay, I have a quick question here from Fierro, who's asking about if there's subtitles in Spanish. I'm going to quickly just say something to Fierro in Spanish. Hola, Fierro, gracias para su pregunta. No tenemos subtítulos en español para esta sesión, pero hacemos sesiones en español en nuestra página en español, que se llama Doman Iberoamérica. Si buscas en Facebook o Instagram para Doman Iberoamérica, puedes ver nuestras sesiones allá. Y tenemos sesiones gratis también en español. Okay. I was just saying that we have a Spanish Instagram page and we do sessions over there, and I recommended that they follow us there. Okay. Let me see. On Instagram, we've got a question that says, for years, I have thought all of Glenn Doman's teaching should be implemented in a universal pre-K. Is there any effort to take his message to public education in the United States and around the world? Well, I'm definitely focused on spreading, the information about my grandfather's teachings around the world, and have been so for many years. In terms of an effort to bring it into public schools, I can't say that that's a specific project that we've been working on, mostly because, we only have so much time and resources. And so we focus more on teaching parents. But there are schools around the world that have started to implement our programs, and with good results. So, hopefully, in fact, this morning I was talking to an administrator of a school. So it's not like it isn't important to us. It is, but our focus over the past decades has been on parents. And I'm sure that the day will come when our teachings are used in, you mentioned universal pre-K. I'd love it for every pre-K classroom in the world to be using our program. I think it would completely change not just the results of children in our school system to be taught with the Doman reading and math programs at a young age, but I think it would change the trajectory of children's enjoyment of school as well. I think children would love it a lot more. I think that many children hate going to school because the methods being used in the classroom are not ideal for their learning style and ability. And so it's something I'm very, very passionate about. And any way we can continue to spread our work, we are completely in support of. Okay, the next question I have from Anamika is, sir, do you have any material for kids aged 11 years old who has a fair level of intelligence? So Anamika, my first question for you is, are we talking about an average 11-year-old and you're just talking about kind of supplemental educational materials? Or are you asking about an 11-year-old who has some developmental challenges? Could you let me know? Because my answer would be different for those two groups of children. And when you say fair level of intelligence, I'm not, I just need some more clarity on that. And then hopefully I can give you a helpful answer. Okay. Tanya is asking what the Spanish page is. It's Doman Iberoamerica. And that's both that's our Spanish Instagram page and Facebook page. All right, Tanya is asking, what are the correct steps to follow in order for my child to learn to read with the Doman method? So Tanya, I'll tell you about the first steps, because it would probably take me about 2 hours to kind of lay out the entire reading program. But in terms of first steps in getting started, the most important thing is, and it's the first step always in our reading program, is teaching a child how to read words. And I have some sample words here that I can show you. So you can see here, that we focus first, right, on teaching children to read using large red letters. The reason why we do this is many children, both with special needs and children, young children in general, they have immature vision. And so they're not able to read small print. And so by using large, clear print, it eliminates the visual challenges that they might have to reading. The next thing that we do is we teach words in categories. So, for example, you can see here we have a set of words of different animals, right? So when we teach the child, we'd say, okay, let's look at words of different animals. We have elephant, lion, tiger. And because it's just that one word, it's very easy for the child to see and learn how to read. So that's why we have children, even with very significant developmental delays, learn how to read with this program. So once you're using the right materials, and this is very similar, Tanya, to what I was saying earlier about, this is what I was saying earlier about teaching with images, right? Once you've got the best quality of materials, then really the next step is, okay, what's the frequency, right? What's the repetition the child needs to learn the words? So with a category like this, when we're first starting the reading program with a kid, we would show these animals usually 3 times in a day, right? And one important thing, after I've shown these 5 animals, I'm going to shuffle up the cards, right? So that way, when I pick up the cards the next time, it would be in a different order than it was the first time. And why do we shuffle, right? Because if we show the same order of words every time, elephant, tiger, lion, the child will actually start to memorize the order rather than learn to read the words. So by shuffling it, it's in a different order each time, and the child doesn't memorize the order, but it also makes it more interesting for the kid. If it's always in the same order, the kid's like, oh, elephant, lion, tiger. They know what's coming next. And knowing what's coming next is not a good teaching principle, right? Teaching should be exciting, and there should always be a level of surprise, for the child. So yeah, we would teach this set of words 3 times in a day generally, and we teach it for about 5 days. Okay. And after 3 times a day for 5 days, a total showings of 15 times, many children will learn to recognize these words. And it's very, very impressive to the parents when they do, and every week I get to watch, children with significant speech issues, for example, show their parents for the first time that they're reading. And that's really an unforgettable moment when that happens. So single words, Tanya, are the first step of the reading program. There are steps later, right, that come afterwards. And I'm just seeing if I have other materials here. Like after we teach a child to read words, we move on to teaching them how to read, sentences. And then the step after that are books. But that's a step-by-step approach that we take. And we go into a lot more depth into the subject of reading in our books. So for example, for parents of children with special needs, our 2, you can actually see the 2 books behind me too. The 2 main books that we recommend to start with are, here we have the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. And then here you can see Answering Autism. If your child has an autism diagnosis, you start with this book. If your child has almost any other developmental disability, I'd recommend this book, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. Both of these books are available on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and type in, The Doman Method or Spencer Doman, and you'll be able to find these books. All right, I hope that helps. And of course, we also go into a lot more depth in the reading program in our courses, our online courses, the Doman Method course and also the Answering Autism course. Colleen, anything you'd like? By the way, everyone, this is Colleen, who's our Director of Representatives.
Hello.
Hi, Colleen.
Hi.
Hope you had a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, I was just wondering, anything else you wanted to add about either about our reading program or about the courses that I mentioned?
So just, I guess that I grew up on it, and it worked for me and my brothers and my sister. And my mother did not have anything like the kind of resources that we have now, which is wonderful. And I taught my daughter, who's 20 now, to read in the same way. Also, didn't have the Doman Learning resources, but I already knew it worked, so I could relax about it. So it is a very effective way to teach your child to read. Um, and we all want our kids to be big readers because we know that that's the key to them enjoying school and having a rich intellectual life. So highly recommend it, I guess, is the best I can say.
Great, thanks. Well, and Colleen, if you're able to, you may want to look at the Instagram feed, because actually there are 3 different parents who all have questions along the lines of helping an older child with autism. So we've got to, I'll take these in order as they come. So from Dr. Marwale Fadil, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, asked any techniques to help a 15-year-old kid with autism who can reason, I guess, but has issues with comprehension, maybe at a second grade level or a bit below. Thank you. So yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of thoughts, doctor. And by the way, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I definitely recommend the Answering Autism book for you, because this book lays out not just what to do about comprehension, but also speech development, mobility development, reading, social development. We cover a lot of topics in this book. So yeah, any techniques to help a 15-year-old? So yeah, absolutely. What I would do, one of the many things that I would do, is I would start a program of using both images and reading words to increase the child or the teenager's understanding of vocabulary and their ability to read it. So for example, I'm just using the materials that happen to be close by to me right now, but I would combine the use of the reading words, right, along with pictures for teaching, right? So to give you an example, if I took my set of pictures and words, right, and I said, this is an elephant, and here's the word elephant, right? And then I showed a picture of a giraffe and the word giraffe, right? And then a picture of a lion and the word lion. That would really be effective for 2 different things that you mentioned. The first thing is it would build the child's comprehension, because through the images, they'd be learning new things. And by the way, children and young adults with autism tend to be, I don't want to speak on all of their behalves, but the vast majority tend to be better visual learners than auditory learners, right? So if you show them a picture of an elephant, you say this is an elephant, and you teach them a few times, usually if you come back 2 days later and you say, which one is the elephant, right? And you hold up 2 different cards like this and you say, okay, where's elephant? Very often they know exactly what it is because they're good visual learners. But often they have challenge with auditory learning. So for example, I could explain if they've never seen an elephant before, and I try to explain to them what an elephant looks like, they'd have a very hard time following my description. So what we do with the Doman method is we combine visual learning with auditory learning. Visual learning is the strength, auditory learning might be the weakness. So by the holding up the picture and saying what it is at the same time, the child is actually learning a piece of information through 2 sensory pathways, vision and hearing. Everything a human learns in their lifetime, they learn through sensory pathways. We can see, we can hear, we can feel, we can taste, we can smell. Everything you've ever learned in your life, you learn through one of those 5 pathways. And so when we combine pathways, that is how we teach in the most effective way possible. So if you take that 15-year-old and you put them in a classroom where there's a teacher kind of talking, for hours and explaining things on a blackboard, that student may be unable to see the blackboard clearly and completely unable to follow what is being said because of their auditory challenges. But now you take the same information and you present it in image and reading form, and all of a sudden you have a kid where you can even take very complex things. I mean, these are very simple materials, right? But I have many, even 6, 7, 8-year-olds with, diagnosed with autism, and I can hold up different cards like this that the child has learned and say, okay, where is Susan B. Anthony? And they, sorry, I'm seeing mirror image. They know that this is Susan B. Anthony, right? And sometimes even more sophisticated, we won't just give the children information like, like teaching them about important people in history, but I could also say, which of these women were very important for getting women the right to vote, and they would know, oh, it's Susan B. Anthony, because we're using that visual sensory pathway to teach them. And so that's why, I started this session off by talking about why the Doman method is so effective for teaching children and young adults with special needs. But specifically for kids with autism, they tend to do amazingly well with these teaching sessions because it's presented in a way that they can learn, but also the sessions are short and repeated. So because they're short, the children stay engaged with the session for some time. Colleen, I'm going to add you again, if that's okay. Specifically because we got 3 questions back to back about teenagers. So starting the Doman method later, any thoughts on that?
Yes. So I think parents should not be worried that it's too late. It's never, ever too late. There are always things that can be done. I always remind families or let them know when I talk to them that Glenn began his work with elderly stroke patients. So, and we do still occasionally work with elderly people or people who have, had various things go on in their lives, or who have had a diagnosis their whole life and are just coming to this now. And it's still, the brain is pretty miraculous when it comes to neuroplasticity. So teenagers are ripe for improvement. And it's a really, it's a challenging time of life being a teenager anyway. And then add on to that neurological issues. It actually, I know the families I've spoken with who got started with our program when their kids were 13, 14, 15, said that it made everything calm down in a lot of ways because the structure was so helpful. They had a clear idea of what was going to help their kid. But also it's a very respectful program. You're really getting your kids on board. Even if you think, oh, I'm not sure how much they understand, we encourage you to talk to them as if they do, because we find that they do understand a lot more than it might seem. And then it's it just has a completely different flavor from, oh, we go to the therapist office and they do things there and then we go home. It's really more of a lifestyle adjustment, but in a very positive way. So it's really great for teenagers, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a question here from Ara who says, can this method be used at any age with a child with autism? My daughter is 13 years old and nonverbal. And yeah, so the answer is absolutely, Ara. Yeah, it's very, very common for children with teenage children to be on our program. And actually, we have a term that we use for teenagers and adults when they begin our program, which is the catch-up phenomenon, where we often find that when we take an older, a teenager or an adult, and we start to teach them in a way that is effective for them. It might be the first time in their life where they're getting a tailor-made teaching program that makes it easy for them to learn, right? Because they may have been in school for many years struggling, and all of a sudden they're being taught in a way that is easy for them to take in information. Sometimes they can literally make up years of educational time in a short period of time. So I've seen children, for example, in 6 months' time, jump 3 or 4 grade levels because of this catch-up phenomenon. They just needed to be taught in the right way. So that, yeah, great question, Ara. And by the way, everyone, the reason why I asked Colleen to be here with me, so Colleen is one of Doman International's representatives. We do have different representatives in different regions who speak different languages, but Colleen, for English speakers, is usually the first person at Doman International to speak to them. And honestly, if it were up to me, I would probably spend all day speaking to new families on the phone. But unfortunately, there are other things I have to do for the organization and for the families on our program. So Colleen, gets to have that pleasure. And so I want many of you to meet Colleen, so you know who it is you're talking to for the first time. So Colleen, if these parents want to reach out and have a call with you, how can they do that?
So the quickest way, since we're on Instagram, or Facebook, just send a direct message because I check all of them. A few of us do, but I will see your message and I will respond to you right away. So that's the best way. Or you could, if you want to email me, it is info, INFO, @domaninternational.org. That's another way to get me.
Perfect. And I'm going to put that email address up.
And when you talk to me, it's not, I don't want families feeling like, oh, there's an obligation now and we have to start doing a thing. It's really just a discovery call. We can talk a bit more about your child and what you've done up to this point, and discover the best way to help you, because there's no one size fits all. Every single family needs their own individual approach. So.
Okay. Yeah. The doctor said I ordered the book from Amazon, but we'll start reading it this week. Fantastic. Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, Colleen.
You bet.
All right. Yeah. And so especially for those of you like our Dr. Marwell, Ara, Anamika, yeah, reach out to us, send us a message. And then, by the way, even if we do have different representatives in different parts of the world and people who speak different languages too. So Colleen, if you wanted to have a call in another language, Colleen may be able to refer to you to a person who speaks that language. All right, we have a comment here from Sandrak who says, hi, I took the course. I totally recommend it. Sometimes I don't always finish the number of meters in crawling per day. Sometimes I make the goals, but I make more than half of my goal. Okay, well, listen, Sandra, that's, the goals that we set out in the Doman Method course, we create those goals in many ways because our parents ask us to give them a number. I've been teaching parents for, I guess I'm going on 17 years now. And sometimes, if I say to a parent, do this, do crawling and creeping because it's good for child development. But if I say to them, but I'm not going to give you an exact amount to do, parents will say, no, you've got to tell me exactly what to do, so I know, what the goal is. And so interestingly, one of the reasons why we always give the number of times we recommend to do an activity and the distance is because parents ask that of us. But we also do that with the understanding that every day is different, right? You're never going to be able to achieve your goals on every day. And you just have to go into the program with that understanding. In fact, when I look at the parents who have the most success with the Doman Method, who are able to do our program for some time and get great results, I find that they have certain traits in common. And one of the traits that I tend to find is that they have short memories, right? They tend to wake up each day and say, you know what, I wasn't able to do everything yesterday that I wanted to do, but today's a new day and it's going to be great and I'm going to do my best. If you go into each day with that mindset, instead of ending off each day thinking, oh no, I didn't get this, and this done. If you can program yourself to say, hey, look at the things I did get done today that I never would have thought I would be able to achieve, and these are all different activities that are beneficial for my child's development. And, wow, like I never would have thought I would have been able to get all this done in a day. And look what I've done. Even though I wasn't able to reach the goals, look at everything I've achieved. If you can have that mindset for the long term for your child, that's going to be much more beneficial. But if you are constantly, but by the way, no parent gets all the things done in a day that they want. Even parents not on the Doman program, often will end off each day going, oh, why didn't I get everything done I wanted to do today? So, it's important, give yourself grace, be easy on yourself. Whatever you were able to do with your child today was a big success. And if you can keep that mindset, you'll be able to do the program longer and with more joy and success. Okay, Abby says, when I ask my 1-year-old daughter to choose a word, she ignores me. And she usually chooses both of the cards. Is that okay? Because I stopped asking her to choose. So, Abby, I'm going to answer your question, but I might ask you some questions in the meantime. So, first of all, this is something which is pretty common for young kids. You'll kind of present them with two options and they'll kind of grab both options, right? Usually that's because they're trying to send you a signal that they don't like it. It's their way of saying, I know you're testing me and I don't want to be tested. And that's very common for 1-year-old kids. They're very smart. They know that they're being asked a question. And so I think you did the right thing in stopping asking her to pick a word, Now, Abby, I would ask you a couple questions. So first of all, my first question is, was this always her response? Like from the very start, did she grab both words, or was there a period where she would actually indicate a word for you? My second question is, have you seen any of our courses about reading, like the Reading Before School course at Doman Learning? Because I do talk in those courses a bit about how to ask children questions in a fun and lighthearted way. And so there might be some recommendations there that would be helpful for you. Okay, I have a question here on Instagram. What's the difference between the Doman Method versus the Sunrise program versus DIR floor time? So, what I will, DIR floor time, I don't know anything about. So you're going to have to excuse me. I can't really talk about the differences between us and that program. The difference between Doman Method and Sunrise, to be honest with you, completely different programs. I mean, um, there's really no comparison because the Sunrise program, and by the way, I don't use the Sunrise program, so I'm not really authorized or educated in how to teach it. So I don't want to, I'm not an expert in it. And so, you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I do know many families who have come to Doman International for our program who did Sunrise in the past. And so for what I understand from speaking to them is that the program is focused a lot more on kind of socializing with your child with autism, kind of getting into their world, interacting with them based on their interests. Okay, that's my understanding of the Sunrise program. The Doman Method is much more about using a system of different programs to treat the underlying cause of the child's issues, which is in the brain. So we are really a brain-focused program where we teach families activities they can do at home, which help develop the brain. And when the brain is developed, it improves almost any area of development. That could be speech development, social development, reducing hyperactivity, improving reading and math skills, because we're really focused on the underlying cause. So like I said, I've spoken to many parents who used Sunrise in the past. That's what they've told me. Yeah, so that's what I can say about that. The Doman Method is a holistic program, right? It's a drug-free approach, and it is really focused on, what are the different treatments that we've discovered over the last 70 years, we have had 7 decades of experience with this. What are the best treatments for helping the brain develop? And when that happens, the child gets better. And that's what our program is really about, results. It's not one specific treatment. It's not a kind of dogmatic thing of like, we do things this way. It's about what gets the best results for children, what helps children develop fastest, and we use those programs. And that's why the Doman Method is constantly innovating. There are actually 400 different treatments and techniques that we use to help develop children, and those are customized on that child's specific needs. Okay, going back to Abby's question, Abby said no before, because I had said, was she answering questions correctly before and not now? And Abby said she was picking the right one, especially in math. So I think, Abby, she's making a kind of clear communication to you that when you're trying to test her, she's just not liking it. If I were you, I would probably take off about 2 weeks from asking her questions just to give her a break. You can even tell her, like, mommy's going to take a break from asking you questions. I'm just going to show you materials. And then after about 2 weeks, I think you can go back to doing problem solving, but it's very important. Don't ask more than maybe 2 questions at a time. Sometimes if you ask many questions in a row, a child can get very, very frustrated with it. The other thing that I'll say, Abby, is I'll see many parents do this where they'll ask a child a question like, where's the word elephant? And the child might even point at the correct word, and the parent's like, and puts it down and doesn't give the child any feedback, right? So for example, if I'm asking a child to locate a word, like, where's the word elephant? If they point at elephant, I'm going to say, yeah, that's elephant. I'm going to give them, I'm going to acknowledge their answer. But if they point at the other one, right, I'm not going to say, no, that's tiger. This is elephant. Pay more attention. I would never say that to a child. By the way, I don't think you would either. But instead, what often happens is what parents often do, the child points at the wrong answer and the parent becomes uncomfortable. So the child points at tiger and the parent kind of puts down the options and awkwardly puts it away because they're too uncomfortable to give the child feedback. So instead, if a child points at tiger, right, I would just go, oh, that's tiger. This is elephant, right? So I show them the one word, I show them the other. I just turn it into a teaching session. So the child doesn't even necessarily think, oh, I got it wrong. They just think it's kind of, my question is a prelude to a teaching moment. And so that kind of takes out that discomfort that many parents have around asking questions. All right, I have a question that's coming on from YouTube. Maria says, hi, Spencer. I have a question about reading. We started the program about 2 months ago, and we use word cards. Is it late now to introduce picture cards in combination with the reading cards? No, absolutely not. You could absolutely add the picture cards. If you have the Doman Learning materials, by the way, anyone who has already bought the reading materials from Doman Learning, it got for free as a part of you having purchased those materials, the images. You just have to log back in to the course and download the images. The one important thing is when you're teaching pictures and words together, it's very important to teach the image first before the word, right? So I'm going to, sorry, I've got a bunch of materials here and I just wanted to show you what I meant by this. Yeah, so for example, you would show the picture of the lion first, then you would show the word lion, right? So you'd say, this is the lion, and this says lion, okay? The reason why you show the picture first is the child needs to first understand what it is you're teaching them, right? Which is, this is what a lion looks like. Then when you show them the word lion, they're interested because they know what a lion is already. But if you did the opposite, if you showed this is lion, the child may not know even what you're talking about. And then you show the picture, which they'll enjoy, but they may have even lost out on learning to read the word because they didn't know what it meant. All right, I've got a question here from Quenny who says, hi, sir. What about what they call AAC for a nonverbal child? What can you say about it? Thank you. Yeah, so AAC are augmented communication devices. These are devices or apps that you can find on tablets for communicating with children who aren't able to speak. And I think at Doman International we use augmented forms of communication. So for example, we will use something. This is called a choice board, and it's our first most simple form of augmented communication, right? Or facilitated communication with the child. And the way this would work, right? You've got a simple yes and no choice board. And imagine for a second, you're sitting with a child and you've got this choice board in front of them like this. And you'd say you'd take the child's hand and you'd say, "Hey, Lucy, are you hungry?" Yes. And you'd point to yes. Or no. And you'd point to no. And then you'd hold the child's hand above the board and wait for them to answer. And so the child then will usually point to one of the two options. You always give hand under wrist support because for many children, that support really helps them with focusing on the session at hand and delivering an answer. Also, for children with coordination issues, that little bit of support can really, really help them. And so what children will start to do is they'll start over time to point to answers clearly about what they want. After we've started with this choice board, we'll start to get more sophisticated with it. So here you can see we're asking a child, what would you like right now? Do you want a nap? Like, are you tired? Do you want some water? Do you want food or something else? And we'll have the child start to point to specific options that they want. And eventually, and this is really a process over time, we will get to the point with some children where we will use a keyboard on a computer or a letter board like this, where the child actually types their answers for us, right? Where you can ask the child, "What do you want to do this weekend?" And they'll type pool. They'll tell you exactly what they want to do. Now, this is a process, okay? This is not something that's going to happen over one day. You really have to take a child step by step and a family step by step so that they're comfortable with, each step along the way and that they're successful. But yeah, we use a form of augmented communication and it's very helpful. Now, these ways of communicating are so important because they give a child who may be unable to speak or have poor speech a way of communicating their needs. However, we don't give up on speech development, right? There's a whole part of the Doman method focused on, helping a child speak. And that's important because we want a child to be able to talk, and speech is so important for communicating your needs with others and going out into the world and living an independent, successful life. So we will do these augmented forms of communication in the meantime until a child's speech has gotten to the point where they can say all the things they want to say. Good question. All right, I think we've only got 5 more minutes, everyone, so we'll try to get through these last questions quickly. We actually received 2 questions about reading in French, what are the chances we'd get 2 questions about French? Corinne, I believe we do not have French materials. If you go to the Doman Learning website, there are different languages available, and I don't remember off the top of my head if French is one of them. So yeah, go to domanlearning.com, and I think we have maybe 9 or 10 different languages available there. And you can see if you can find the materials in your language. All right, let me go on to the next one. Oh, Abby says, "I read your books on reading and math. I'm planning to take the courses as well." Yeah. At Doman Learning, we've got the reading before school course and the math before school course, Abby, and I think they would be helpful. All right, Sandrak is asking, the appointments for next year, is the schedule done yet? Between this time, I'm doing the program that my coach makes available for my son. Okay, so Colleen, I'm going to add you back here. Do you know, Colleen, do we have a schedule available for 2025 yet?
No, but it's imminent. I think in the next probably 2 weeks. I think we should
Yeah.
have it all ironed out. So we're very
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is if you haven't taken the course yet and you're interested in coming for an appointment with Doman International, reach out to Colleen and say, what kind of, first of all, she can talk you through where we have appointments, what kind of appointments we have for families, and then you could pick the best one. But if you've already taken the course, I would recommend just tell your staff coach, hey, put me on the list for, if it's Florida, say Florida, if it's California, say California, whatever country, Europe, if you want to come to our center in Italy, tell your staff coach, and as soon as that date is available, they'll let you know.
Yeah, that's the best way.
Okay, I'm just seeing if all right, I think, Colleen, I think we're basically all out of time, Colleen. Any final notes that you'd like to leave the parents with?
Yes, we have a course coming up in English. Begins on November 4th. Prior to that, we have a couple of options for families too. We actually have a sampler course that we're doing. If you're interested in the course, please DM us. That's all I have to say at the moment. But we have a lot of options coming up for our last English course of the year. So I really recommend thinking about that. Then you can sail into the new year with a great plan of action for your child.
Yeah, and I see there are some Spanish speakers here. So our Spanish course starts on October 7th, right, Colleen?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, el curso en español comienza el 7 de octubre. Okay, so if you have any questions about that course, again, send us a message, and we do have a Spanish-speaking representative who can answer your questions. Okay, thanks so much, Colleen.
Thank you. Thanks, Spencer.
All right, everyone. Have a really good rest of your week, everyone, and see you soon. Bye-bye.